to celebrate, right?
Winning.
Yeah, for real.
All right, I think you guys are now live.
Okay, we are live. I'm at the Vacancy YouTube, but I don't have the questions. But I'm sure we'll be able to figure that out before we get there. But welcome everybody. Welcome to the Talkback for Into the Side of the Hill. My name is Bruce Woman. I'm going to be facilitating this Talkback and having a conversation with these amazing artists that are joining us here. How about we go around and do some introductions so they know who you are and what role you played. And let's start where things always start, on the page with James Anthony Tyler.
So, hey, I'm James Anthony Tyler, the playwright of Into the Side of a Hill.
I guess I'll go. My name's Jamil. I'm the director.
Hi, my name is Brandon Michael Hall, and I played Zarel.
Hey, I'm Brandon Mendez Homer, and I play Perry.
Hey, I'm Jacob Daniel.
Yeah, go Jacob, you good. You first, Jacob. You first.
Okay, I'm Jacob Daniel Smith, and I played Vic.
I'm Michael Brower, and I played Fred.
Hey, I'm Jalen, and I played Stanley. And I went last because I tried to avoid all that roughly.
Well, thank you all for joining us. Amazing work on this play. I'm just going to put it out there. I also went to an HBCU, Hampton University. James, I know you went to Howard.
We've already got to start beefing.
There's not a game going on right now, so we must be cool.
Right.
You know, it's all love. It's all love.
It's all love.
Unless there's a game, and then we got to go.
Yeah.
And then we got to go. And I'm with the Nukes. So, Jamil, I see you, bro. Love it.
Respect the roots. Respect the roots.
And I was in college during this time frame. I graduated in 2006. So it felt like I was having flashbacks watching this and reading these words. I felt like I was in the room again, and it was fantastic. So thank you for this gift. It's very rare we get to see these stories played out. So it's good to see yourself and see people you know and love reflected, especially in this art form that we've dedicated our lives to. I'm personally very, very thankful for the work you've done here thus far. And I just want to start off with a couple of questions here. Like what was the process like putting this together on Zoom for you all with the precision, especially with the steps? You know, you gotta be precise, you gotta be tight. What was that process like for you all? This is open to anyone.
Jamil, you wanna?
Yeah, I mean, thanks again. It's good to see you, Fi. I think what was really crucial is that the fellas knew each other, right? Like, it's really good that, James had that opportunity at Juilliard and got to meet all of these amazing young men that were part of the show. And they already had that tight bond. I think anytime you're building ensemble, you really want to start from a place of trust. So the fact that we needed to work quickly, because of the nature of this Zoom reading, the fact that there was trust that was already established, I really felt very much like a neophyte, like a new person into the crew, just trying to quickly gain the trust of everybody. But everyone was a professional that came to work ready, and it worked really smoothly, actually. And I was really proud and to be a part of this team.
Great. How about for the actors? What was this experience like for you all?
Yeah, I'll go. I'll say that it was really, I don't know about y'all, but it was really hard for me because I know I'm such like a physical person, and like wanting to be in the room and wanting to actually like do the choreography. And I know for me, my time at Juilliard, like I spent most of my time trying to figure out how to focus. And like trying to focus on Zoom is such a different thing, especially now that we've been in quarantine for how long? Like 4 months now, 3.5
4 months? Yeah.
About 4 months. And like, you know, Zoom is a different focus. I mean, I don't know how y'all feel about it, but it was hard for me because I really did want to see Jacob again, and I did want to see Julian and my people, and it's just like, you know, that impulse is still there. Like, that's one of the things that'll never go away, whether it's on Zoom or on stage. But it was hard. It was hard. I had fireworks firing off in my neighborhood one day. I was like, I can't rehearse like this. I can't rehearse like this. So nah, but we're professional and we pulled it together. And, you know, so yeah.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's just grateful for the time to just fellowship, like you said, with some of the brothers that I know back from J Yard and some of the relationships we got to build. So I mean, in rehearsals, sometimes we had some small talk, and I found that really fulfilling. You know, before transitioning into some of the text, because I think you know, Jalen's right. You can't replicate being in the room, but there is a certain sensation that comes with just, you know, catching up and building and seeing what's been going on with each other, and that was able for me to transition in the reading.
Were you? How many of you knew each other beforehand from the JR? I spent some years at Juilliard as well.
Yeah.
All of you?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is that is quite a group.
I wasn't talented enough.
None of that.
I don't think that's what happened. How does this mirror your own experiences in undergrad, or how many Greeks do we have in this group? Is it just the three up top? Is it just the okay? Yeah. What was it like stepping into this world?
Juilliard didn't have a Greek. We didn't have Greeks at Juilliard. I think they tried at one point, but I don't think the Penguins were gonna work.
Yeah, we the undefeated Penguins. Yeah. I remember we was doing a dance one day, and I said out loud, I'm sorry for saying it out loud, but I was like, yeah, we went to a conservatory. We all laughed about it, like, yeah. It's kind of real. It's okay though. We got rhythm, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I saw it. I'm really wondering about the significance of the title, James. Maybe you can give us some insight on the significance of the title and how it relates to these young men in their journey.
Yeah, Mike's character Fred talks about it when he talks about the whole migration to St. Louis and basically the white supremacy and the fighting, and then when all of the people ended up homeless, you know, they all had to survive together into the side of this hill, you know. And so I just thought that encapsulated what the brothers are trying to do throughout this process, survive together. And even beyond this process, they will be brothers, you know, they're bonded for life. And they will go through this life and try to survive together. There'll be differences, you know, there'll be infighting like you do with your brothers and your sisters and your family. But overall, you all bond together and you know, just try to survive.
Great. Well, you know, I'm gonna ask that question later. But actually, no, I'll ask it right now. There was a lot of music and the long contested debate, Pac or Biggie. And it's not a casual question. This is a hardcore debate.
Yeah.
And I'm really wondering where you all actually land on this debate.
I mean, you
Biggie
know,
all
going
day.
through age.
That's it. Just Biggie all day. I'll put that out there.
Biggie all day? Okay. Where Brooklyn at?
Everybody else wants to stay quiet.
Cool. Yeah, this is hard. This is hard. You don't want to be out there, right?
I'm putting Pac out there.
Yeah, I'm gonna just say, like, my dad had like this black Mercedes, and he was always blasting Biggie, right? But when I watched that Tupac movie, and like he got shot at the end with the Blackberry Molasses song came on, I was like, I'm team Pac. I'm sorry, I'm team Pac.
All right, look. Let me defend myself. Well, Jamil, were you about to jump in? You about to say Pac too? No? All right. Well, I'm saying just from a purely technical standpoint, Biggie has the best flow of all time. And I'm just gonna put that out there. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I will say, like, I love Biggie, man. I love Biggie. I love Pac. I love Pac's cadence. But I grew up in Tallahassee, Florida, so I'm Uncle Luke, actually. Sure, we can talk Pac, Biggie, but like, if we talking about hip hop in the '90s, man, give me some Uncle Luke, give me some 69 Boys, give me some stuff that feels more right to me.
Yeah, that nice section, that nice chunk of music at the sweat house party in the gym where everybody's rocking to that Luke that's playing for a good 15, 20 minutes. You can't feel your knees afterwards because you've been getting in, what was it? I'm curious about what was it like stepping back to that time period, because it's very time specific to that era with the upcoming election and all the musical reference. Like I really, really felt like I was in the early 2000s. What was it like stepping back into that time frame? Were you all familiar with that, with all those songs and all those references, or was that all new stuff for you? I see you shaking your head, Jacob. I'm feeling old all of a sudden now.
See, when the Tupac and Biggie thing came out, I mean, the boys know. I told them, I was like, I love music, but and even that time period, I was a baby. I was 22. I didn't, but I did my research and I remember talking to James about the clothing, and the clothing really speak to me because the bags with the pants with y'all was fly, that was the style. I was like, it's baggy t-shirts, baggy everything. So me stepping back there for me, it was like it was fun. It was really dope. I mean, it's like people are people, just depending on the time. So whatever. So.
No, that track by I believe his name is Ahmed, Back in the Day remix. They play like at the beginning of The Wood, and he says, "Back in the day when I was young, I'm not a kid anymore."
Yeah, wish I was a kid again.
It's that nostalgic feeling, It's that when you step back into the early 2000s. I know for me, like I remember rocking with them Franchise Boys and wearing my shirts all the way down with the Nikes and going in the champs before you hit off, to hit the spot, So for me, it was very, very nostalgic. And I know that the things and the styles and the culture that we're creating now is going to be nostalgic as well for the next generation that's coming up. I think that's one of the big important things about what James wrote, and he wrote within these characters, is this feeling of nostalgia, this feeling of, and that we all got it when we were at Juilliard. There's kind of this badge of honor, especially as Black men. We made it through this conservatory, and we now get to actually do a play written by a Black man, So there's this pride that comes in it, the same pride that you would have if you're I believe in a fraternity as well. So I think that connection really glued us together to take on this project, because at the basis of it is that nostalgia of being around your brothers. And like what James said, is like getting over the hill, but at the same time, finding this beauty within this pain that these guys are going through individually. So yeah. To answer your question, it's very nostalgic.
And I think too, here we are on the cusp of another election, where the political conversations that the men are having in the play still feel very much like the conversations that Black men are having today. I mean, maybe more so 4 years ago, when it didn't feel like the die was as cast as far as who's on what side of a conversation. But in a time where state-sanctioned violence, especially as it is perpetuated on the people that make up this play, that type of brotherhood, that type of conversation, the stresses of life, be it family, be it money, be it mental health, those things are ever present. If we took out some of those references that set us in a specific time, the conversations feel timeless. And that is both the beauty of James's writing, but also some of the challenge of this moment and why we need more representation, why we need more advocacy, why we need more change. But it feels both. It makes you part of a continuum, and I think that's what I really linked on to. It connected me back to myself, my college self, but also felt very present as well.
You know, there's the need for community, especially amongst a group of young men who are at the right at the cusp of figuring out who they are, who they want to be, and the need for community to protect you, to shelter you, to shield you from what's going on outside and even what's going on inside. There's a level of intimacy that that these young men have when they talk to each other that you only get when you go through something together and face something together. What is it about? What do you think is it about the? This is kind of a broad question, but about the nature of fraternities that gives us that brotherhood and that protection and that ability to just be radically honest with each other and vulnerable, which is something that I think, especially as Black men in America, like being vulnerable is something that is very dangerous to be in a lot of cases, and even taught not to be vulnerable as a means of protection. But these young men are able to find that vulnerability with each other, and as a means of survival. But I'm wondering, like, what is it that makes that happen? What is the mechanism in fraternities that gives us that gift?
Yeah, I think what you say really resonates with me. I think it's the accountability aspect of it. Since you're inheriting a tradition from a bunch of brothers that have gone through it before, there's a sense of safety in it, you know, that I can be vulnerable because I can be held accountable without having, you know, physical harm come to me and some of the other things that we face in society as Black men today. I think it's incredibly freeing to be in an environment where you know your brothers are going to have your back in a radical in a radical way, and they're not going to sugarcoat it. They're going to be honest because they want to see you succeed through that tough love. So you know, there's room for laughter, there's room for hard lessons, and I think what creates that grounds is really just the tradition that comes from that leadership being passed down from people who've gone before. You know, as you enter into it, this is the space in which I can stretch at my full capacity, because I know if I fall flat on my face, my brothers are going to be there to pick me up. You know, they're going to be lockstep with me, you know, to pun on, you know, some of the work that these guys do together. So yeah, that to me, you know, thinking back to, you know, Juilliard once again is different from a fraternity, but I guess, you know, what Brandon says is true. We do have a tradition there. And you remember the first Black brother you saw in the hallway, and a Black sister you saw in the hallway. You remember who congratulated you when you came through. You remember the people who was like, yo, there's going to be some things that happen, you know? So it's really encouraging when you enter into a tradition like that, because you know that you're not alone. And that's one of the things that I found.
I think also too that I know for me, it was like one of the first organizations that you are in these traditions, you are accepted for what you bring to the table, you know? So it's, you know, you reflect and you're just like, oh, wow, I was worthy, you know, to be invited into continuing these traditions. So I think that also creates a safe space. And that's what's happened for these characters. And I really wanted to explore that in the piece.
I got a question about legacy. And an example. This is probably more so for Jamil and James. Did you have family that was frat before you joined, or were you going in blind and figuring it out when you got there?
I mean, I had people in the community, people I looked up to, mentors and stuff like that, but nothing immediate. My father made the mistake of becoming a Sigma around the time that I became a Kappa man. So we are having similar journeys, but he not before.
Yeah, for me, it was just figuring it out. No one in my family is a Greek or went to an HBCU, so I was like the first one. I remember so funny too, when I went to school, I got a scholarship from the Omegas. And so for half of my freshman year, I thought, oh, maybe I should do that. You know, I think that it just didn't feel right. So you do what feels right, and you gravitate towards the brothers who you gravitate towards, no shade.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say that, part of my high school education, I was in the Kappa League, which is a youth development program sponsored by Kappa Alpha Psi. So I think, I had Kappas in my life, all my life from when I was young. So I think I kind of knew where I wanted to go. And my postgraduate experience really confirmed that. Going to a white school, some of our fraternities are founded at HBCUs and other ones are founded at predominantly white institutions. Kappa is one that was founded at predominantly white institution. So living some of the experiences that our founders had in 1911 in the time that I was going to school 90 something years later, like that was the confirmation of the things that I had been taught growing up about how to persevere, how to stay focused, how to find brotherhood inside of a small group.
Yeah. And same, the men that I saw in my life that did amazing things, that like ran the high school I was with, or my grandmother's second husband who came in and said, I'm gonna take care of you and all your kids. Like those are the Kappa men that I saw that led me to Kappa Land. And I always wonder what, because at these white institutions, when frats are built, and frats and sororities were built, especially out of the Divine Nine, it was the black students in pretty much isolated at these white institutions, and it was a means of survival. And then when you get to an HBCU, where everybody is black, the politics kind of change a little bit. And I'm wondering, I'm wondering how that plays into the story a bit, with all the students coming from different backgrounds and different ways of life. Some coming in more affluent than others, some with some legacy, some without, some going in blind, but you still having to find yourself in a room together where you end up finding common ground.
Yeah, you know what? For a lot of the thing is, I mean, for my HBCU experience, it's just so eye-opening about us not being a monolith. Yeah, there's lots of shared experiences, but I also think it's important in my work to highlight, for the reality, the truthfulness. We're not a monolith. Vic has a certain perspective because of his background, and Fred has his perspective because of his background. I mean, all of the characters, so it's important that, I think it's just important to highlight that in the world.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I just want to speak on that too. I actually grew up across the street from Howard, the real HU, the Mecca, as we call it.
Thank you, Jalen.
I'm coming for Hampton right now. But yeah, actually, so they would have us like come over and like do movies and stuff. And to go from that environment, from DC, Chocolate City, to go to Juilliard, this is like this white, thoroughbred like type of environment. There's speaking on what James was saying, we're not a monolith. Like being at an HBCU, it's like because we all are Black, you know, it's like, okay, so what is the real issue now? You know what I'm saying? It becomes there's these topics of like, okay, so Black men versus Black women now, versus, you know, like I don't know, but you know, other topics like so why can't we, you know, be on the same socioeconomic stage? It's just like, I don't know how to say what I'm trying to say. It's like when it's white versus Black, the perspective is so shifted versus like, okay, there's no white people, so what's the real issue? You know what I'm saying? So to divulge and, you know, go through this play and see like, okay, where's Vic coming from with this, like talking about Black on Black crime? It's like, okay, so now we have to investigate these issues because the white people aren't here, you know, and the Black community isn't perfect. And that's hard to talk about sometimes. But when it is just a Black space, we have the opportunity to actually sit down and talk about it. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah.
But
No, you are making sense. You are making sense. You know, there are a lot of opposing views in the play amongst these men, and a lot of views that I could say that me and some of my friends had at the time that don't really translate very well in 2020 or into just your own evolution as a person, you know, now. James, what was it? Can you tell me about that?
You know what? I wanted to really be like radically honest. And so I did not, you know, when I pitched this play to the Vagrancy, I pitched exploring the toxic masculinity in the piece. You know, a lot of the stuff we didn't even, I don't even think in 2004 we were talking about toxic masculinity. You know,
no, you were not.
You were just living your life, you know? And so and the brotherhood at the same time, and the truthfulness, the way people, I didn't want to sugarcoat the language, any of it. I thought that was I just think the truthfulness is important because we can look back on it and say, man, we have progressed in a lot of ways, and in some ways, we're still at the same place, you know? I mean, what Jamil was saying about the political aspect of the piece, you would think in 2000, and you know, after what happened in 2008, that we were, you know, as a country, going somewhere different, but we've circled right back around. And I mean, I think for me, this summer feels like the summer of 2004. You just don't know. For me, I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen in November. I'm just like bracing myself. And that's how I felt in 2004.
There's a through line here with service, especially with Zarel and getting ready to be deployed, and now I'm not sure what the question I'm asking here is, but the being in service to your country, being in service to your brotherhood, being in service to your community. It's a real beautiful picture that that's being painted of the different type of ways you can be in service to each other. Like with the money for the step show, like the prize, like already like putting off like the majority of that prize automatically to help your brother's mom, you know, with no question. And it's not even a debate. It's just, this is what we're doing. Cause that's how it has to be, cause that's what he needs. That's a really beautiful through line that I think you only get from going back to the word community. You only get from a community of your peers, and that becomes your family over time. Go ahead.
I was saying that I think what's key there, right? Like those of us who have made lifelong friends in college before you even knew that person existed, right? Like I remember going to college was right at the invent of Facebook. So meeting your roommate on the first time, I remember a story specifically. Like I played football. I thought I was really hot, and I thought that I could go and I was gonna put, what now people call a thirst trap as my first profile picture, and like start the process of courting people early on my first profile photo. And I remember a teammate who would eventually become my best friend saw that, and like immediately was like, listen, I got to get out of this room. Like, I'm not trying to be like roommates with this fool, right? Like, but over time, like, that was my guy. So we meet these people from these different walks of life, and little do you know that in a short period of time, and you're willing to risk your life for them. You're willing to drive people to the airport at 3:30 a.m. so that they could make their 6 a.m. flight. And you're sharing ramen noodle packets, and you're pulling all-nighters and things like that. And the fraternity life and the college life. And my father's spent 27 years in the military, and listening to him tell his story, there's a lot of similarities in that type of mentality of quickly, fast friends, that fraternal bond that makes you put your life on the line for somebody, even if the length of time that you've known them is short. The depth of the relationship, because of the crucible you all have had to endure, it makes it so strong, man. And you can tell somebody about it, but until they actually live it, until they know what that's like, it's indescribable. You won't do it justice what that true bond actually feels like.
All right. We're gonna open it up to some questions from the audience. They're starting to come in, and go ahead, and people who are watching at home or in your car or at park or wherever you're quarantining at right now, just go ahead and type the questions into the chat, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. We have one from Kevin Hopp. It's the question for you, James. Did you start with the whole idea full blown with all the characters in mind? And how did the play evolve?
What's up, Kevin? I know him from teach a playwriting class. But yeah, I knew I wanted Steppen. I knew I wanted 6 guys in a room together. I knew I didn't want to see a step show. I knew I wanted to explore toxic masculinity and brotherhood. That's all I pitched to the Vagrancy, and they were like, write it. So there were a few months where I was just like, I don't know what I am doing here. I don't, just tracking. So it was a process. You know what? The biggest thing about writing anything is getting over the self-doubt. Just moving past the self-doubt, because the self-doubt makes me procrastinate and go on YouTube when I should be writing. And so just to get past that, and that's what's great about this process too. I knew I was accountable to these guys once I got them involved in the process. They needed stuff to read. Jamil needed stuff to direct. I knew that I could get on the phone with Jamil if I was stuck on something and just like talk it out. So I guess it's a long-winded way to say, Kevin, no, I did not have this whole thing mapped out. It was just seeds of an idea and then just sitting down and like putting it together.
Wonderful, wonderful. And speaking of this cast and all these other members of this unit, of this newly formed organization that you had to serve, had to give materials to. How did you find this wonderful ensemble? How did everybody come together?
I just knew them. I mean, I knew all these guys from Juilliard. I always consider myself a big brother to them. I told them that one day, even though some days they made me feel a little older. But you know what? I knew I could just hit them up and they would say yes, because we have built trust with each other. So yeah, they're just really, really love these guys.
Fantastic. Jamil, how did you come into the picture?
James and I, man, I think from our first drink in Minneapolis a couple years ago, we found kindred spirits in one another. Thought about the world of art making and theater specifically the same. So we've just been constant collaborators over the years. And anytime he hits me up and says, "Hey, I got this project, I got this idea," I'm always apt to say yes. But when he started talking about what he wanted to do, when we're talking about fraternal life, I haven't seen too many plays like that, but I knew in James's hands that the characters would be treated well and the specificity needed to create a real story. So new play development is the world I love to live in. So all those factors. Then when I jumped on the Zoom call and I saw all these talented young men, man, like I'm really happy to have found some new collaborators and you know, this business can be ephemeral, right? But thanks to technology, we're able to stay more connected. But regardless, if I never see them again, the time that we spent together is what will last. And that's the thing that I feel so good about. And I have LBs or fraternity brothers that, you know, I may not see for a long time, but when we see each other, we pick back up where we started. And I imagine that with Jalen, Michael, both Michaels, both Brandon, you know, like, and Julian, like, I think it'll be just like, you know, when we pick back up.
Wonderful. Gentlemen, were you all at Juilliard at the same time, or was it just an overlap? Were you all in the same class? How'd you all meet each other?
Jalen, Jacob, Julian, and I are all in the same class. Brandon Homer is in the class above us, and Brandon Hall you were in 44, right? Okay, so 5 classes ahead of us.
Yeah, I was leaving when you guys were coming in, but I got to see y'all soon stuff.
Wonderful. We have another question coming in from Giovanna Payne Smith. Loved it. And can you share a little about how you connected with the characters?
Well, I can say I connected with Zarel's this need to protect his secrets, you know, this idea that if he winds up telling his mom about leaving, that she's going to either tell him not to, or is going to judge him, or, you know, these things that overthinking in the lesser words. So I really connected with that, with having to hold in and withdraw from expressing yourself fully. And also this notion that Zarel has to make sure that the entire group feels a certain way, that they maintain this pride for their fraternity, you know, because he's not going to be there in a few days, I guess, a few months. So yeah, I really connected with that with Zarel.
You know, can I just add, it was like really fun for me to see, you know, Brandon Hall and I have done like 3 different plays together, and I feel like I've always cast him as this nice guy kind of guy. I mean, because it matches up so well with his real life personality. So it was kind of cool to see him being a jerk at times, you know, and he pulled it off so well. Just, you know, I mean, yeah.
It's in my wheelhouse of things. It's my
yeah. I'll piggyback on that. I say 2 things. Just on the heels of what James is saying about Brandon Hall. Obviously, you know, him coming in, actually going out of Juilliard right when I was coming in. You know, just looking up to him and what he's been able to do in his career, it was really easy to fall in line and be like, okay, Zarel has left a legacy here that we got to kind of follow through on. So that took care of itself there. And then the emotional aspect of Perry's journey, I found myself recalling times even at Juilliard where, you know, my brothers and my classmates, there were, you know, experiences, life events that happened where you really lean on those guys, especially my Black brothers. And that was really, I can recall moments where I was like, man, I don't want to show any pain. I don't want to be vulnerable right now. But those guys really had my back in certain, you know, moments of being in that tribe together. So
I think for me, a lot of all the brothers within the cast were my brothers in a like they grew to be to my brothers, like Julian and Jalen and Michael in my class, and they kept me through those 4 years really. And I think during this process, and Brandon as well. But and then I gained another brother named Brandon Hall, and in the James and Jamel too. Just by being around older Black men, you know what I mean, like here and here, just to guide. So my connection to the characters actually extended beyond the working on the actual play, because you just being in a room with these individuals actually like strengthen that connection. So yeah.
Well, go ahead, Michael.
Okay, yeah. I was just, it's pretty quick. I just, one of the aspects of Fred that I identified so strongly with was being starved for your own history when it's been erased, and not really being able to parse out what's fact and what's fiction when the story has been so convoluted and just put through so many different angles. Like one of the moments that struck me so much about Fred is like he goes on this he goes on this trip, right? This legacy, this story that his family's passed down to him, and then in response, Zarel says, "Yeah, but do they got hills and like, is that real? Do you know what I mean?" And I actually feel like that's a giant metaphor for suppressed Black history. You know what I mean? Like unearthing something that you find wonderful, and you're like, why didn't I know this before? Why doesn't everybody know this? And having someone look back at you and say, "Yeah, but is that real?" You know? Yeah, that's just one aspect of Fred that really caught me.
Yeah, I'll say for me, Stanley definitely has this "don't worry about me" aspect quality to him, and I definitely feel that. Like when I'm hurt or something, I don't like to bother people, so I keep it to myself, and I never want to lean on anybody. I also one of my teachers told me, like, don't be afraid to take up space. And living in my body, I mean, people haven't, like, if you saw me, like I'm like this muscular, I mean, I don't know now because of the quarantine, but I look dangerous. So for me, a defense mechanism, because I like workout and stuff, a defense mechanism was for me to smile and take up less space, and I definitely feel like Stanley doesn't want to bother his brothers. You know what I'm saying? So definitely vibe with that.
I wonder. I know we can't. I know we're in this moment of quarantine and isolation, and performing arts are at the very bottom of the reopening list. We don't know when we'll be able to get back on a stage in a theater somewhere. But I'm wondering, what do you think is the next step for this production? Does it belong in on a theater stage on like Broadway? Does it need to happen at HBCUs? Does it need to tour the white institutions as well? Can you see it being put on at schools? And if it was to be put on at school, like I'm wondering, like, do they create a whole nother organization to play out the play with, or do you bring in one of the Divine Nine actually? There's a lot of opportunity here. But what do you think is next? What's your dream, James?
I'm just a writer. I don't, all the producing stuff, I try not to think about too much. I really just try to focus on like story and character arcs and all that stuff. I mean, I would love for it to tour and go off Broadway or wherever, but I really just let the chips like kind of fall where they may. I don't go into writing a piece saying, oh man, this has to go to Broadway, or this has to, even with, I love Jamil, love to work with Jamil in True Colors, but I'm not like, this is a piece for True Colors. No, this is, I have to say, true to like the story and the characters and the character arc and all that writer stuff. And then, you know, some producer hopefully will attach themselves and, you know, then we'll start thinking about that other stuff for me.
Bruce, I really like what you're talking about as far as its ability to play in multiple spaces and to be inventive. I think it's an opportunity for multiple people just to gain access to it. James and I, we quickly talked about this play being in the round, right? Audience surrounding it on four sides. We talk a little bit about the men feeling like they're in a boxing ring, but also Black men are very, I think our lives can be in fishbowls sometimes. Like people already have preconceived notions about who we are. Our bodies are policed in a way. So kind of in engrossing the play or having the audience surround this life and having it performed right there's a way in which that's kind of like against all odds. The family is against all odds, that's outside, but also constantly in the public space. I'm really interested in that, and like you said, there's a lot of conversation that can be had, and you know, there's a really nice theater company in Atlanta, Georgia, that once we figure out some stuff and how we can bring some stuff back to stage, you know, I think these types of stories are ripe for what the work we want to do.
Lovely, lovely. Well, it's day 23. I don't want to hold you too long, but there's a question that I've been asking a lot of the other Black artists that I've been having conversations with, because I just think it's important and it's cool to know. How exactly? How do you manage to be so extraordinary? Because you all are, like, by all accounts, pretty damn dope, and everything is built against you, but you still manage to be this extraordinary. But how?
I think it's about looking to your left and to your right. I think it's all about that. It's all about looking to your left, looking to your right, and always looking up and never looking down. I think there's always a learning that we can do from reflection. Vic says a lot about his faith, and I think as I dive deeper into my faith, I'm finding that the deeper and deeper I get closer to Jesus, just personally, I find myself finding revelations inside, and that's just from the simple act of looking up, of keeping my head up as a Black man. I think the more I look left and right horizontally, I feel like I'm still looking up. You know, I think the more yeah, just like I think it's all about reflecting on the people who are living, and reflecting on the people who will come and who made us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the compliment. Like, extraordinary. For me, I'm just trying to tell the truth, man, the best I can. I'm just trying to be honest and try to do that fearlessly and courageously. And whatever obstacles, whether they're personal or external, that get in the way of that truth, I just try to go towards that and, you know, keep my feet on the ground on the other side.
Yeah, thank you for such a lovely compliment. I appreciate it. I think these brothers are extraordinary too, and I want all y'all to know that. But I think I guess just in the way that I can answer how is I think one of the most beautiful things about theater, and it's going back to what you said earlier, Bruce. It's about service. It's about service to the piece. It's about service to the playwright. It's about getting outside of yourself. It's not really about you at all. It's like, how can I tell the truth? How can I be as truthful as I possibly can in this moment? And how can I tell the clearest, most engaging story? And I found that not only in theater, but just in life, the more that I get outside of myself and am focused on other people, it doesn't really matter what it is, but just the well-being of the people around me, or how I can affect change for the people around me in my immediate circle, the better I feel about my current place in the world and my current mental state and my just general well-being. So yeah, that's.
Thank you. Anybody else got an answer for that? And we're still taking questions from the audience, so continue to add those in.
I think at the end of the day, like just combining everything that everyone has said, I completely agree. We look to our rights, we look to our left, and those are the people who inspire us daily. Because if we don't show up, then as Ramesh just said, then we're giving no service to the play. You know, we're not giving any service to the writer and the stories, the honest, truthful stories that we're trying to tell. At the end, and also at the end of the day, it's culture. I mean, it's just us as Black men. We are great. You know, the odds are stacked up against us every single day, and we have no choice. We don't have the choice, to slack. Mm-hmm. We don't have the choice not to be great, because it's shown around us constantly. It's constantly flashed in our faces. You know, instead of the positivity and the upliftedness, we're showed what it looks like to not be great. So we strive to be the best that we can be in everything that we do. Hence why we're so powerful, majestic, and amazing as human beings. So it's a combination of understanding that our brothers and our sisters who are riding this journey with us are the inspirations to keep us moving forward, but at the same time finding that inner strength, knowing that you are a champion no matter what situation you're in. And as long as, like what Brandon said, if you stay honest, you stay true, you stay as transparent as possible, and you do your job 110%, everything else will fall into play.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think too, right? Like we talk a lot, and I think the play also gives us space that like, and Black men hurt, and we get tired, and the fact that you have to walk into the world and be all of these things and something for yourself is real. Like one of the things that I really enjoyed about this experience was the fact that we are rehearsing from our homes. These fellas got to know me real quick. They got to meet my wife. They got to see my daughter. So you get to see the ways in which everybody else has to show up, and you give them space. And I think that's the thing. One thing that gives me a lot of strength and confidence is to know that while my circumstances are unique, I am not special. Like everyone has a challenge. Everyone has something that is an obstacle that they all are trying to navigate. There have been people who have walked on this earth before me who have lived in similar shoes as I am. And that gives me more confidence to be able to go through. And again, my circumstances may be unique to me, but people have persevered through this and worse. But ending where I started, it is also okay to be like, but I'm tired or I don't got it. And that's why having that fraternity, that's why having that brotherhood to lean on Jalen, to lean on Michael, to lean on the Brandons and Julian and Jacob and James, to be like, y'all, I ain't got it today. Can someone take up the mantle for me and push this thing forward? Knowing that you have that, it allows you to be extraordinary, even when you may not. So.
Thank you. Anybody else got anything to add to that? Because now I think we should do what we need to do next, which is an important part of our radical self-care, especially as Black men in America at this current point in time. It's finally time to rest and be with our loved ones. So why don't we go ahead and start closing this down. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for the work that you've done. Thank you to everybody watching this at home or wherever you got your Wi-Fi signal. Thank you for this lovely play, James. And thank you all for the work you do. Thank you for the vagrancy, bro.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Jamil.
James.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Jamel.
Thank you, everybody.
Guys.
Thank you guys, man.